Ravi, I am very excited to have you here today because we're here to talk about your book, Safar, An Immigrant's Journey of Life and Leadership. And it's exactly what it says because it's all about leadership, but it's done through the lens of your life and experiences and everything. And so those are the greatest books because it is a journey. It's your journey. And I think when people read it, you take them through the journey real well. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Cliff. Good morning.
Uh, you, you know, Going through this and looking at some of the people that reviewed it already, uh, it, it, there was a thing about this is about hardship, adversity, but not giving up personally or professionally. And I know you've done so many different things. You've led teams with 1,000 team members and projects with up to 1,000 team members. You've done multiple marathons. You started a cricket club. Your projects have been in the millions or billions of dollars, uh, and so on and so on. But it all starts back at home because I think some of the lessons you have started when you were little. So, um, before we get into that, why did you write the book? Why did you write this book?
There were many factors, Cliff, and thanks for the question. One of the number one thing was my observation through the journey that I've been through is that a lot of people, when they think about leadership, they are thinking about somebody prestigious, lots of money, extensive influence, and all these things. And I've never seen leadership from that perspective. That is true, that can happen. But for me, leadership has always been about it all begins from you. It's an inside job. How do you condition yourself through the life experiences you have, not other people's experience, your life experience? How do you condition your mind, body, soul to lead in situations that are not ideal? All of us are thrown curveballs in life. There is nobody out there. If somebody tells you that, run from that person, that they never had a curveball in life. So to me, it was about how do I bring a message to people, not preach them, just show them that just like you, just like billions of other people in the world, I've had my curveballs and this is how I dealt in life. And you take from there what you want to and make it your own. And the biggest thing I want to share through this book was you don't have to be perfect. None of us are. Just cherish your imperfections. Shine in your imperfections. Take it, run with it. And if somebody doesn't like it, it's their problem. You have to learn to lead yourself. Before we can think of leading a company, leading a team, leading somebody, learn to lead yourself from inside on and not worry about what the world thinks and says. That was the message, the core message that I want to give to people. And obviously, there's other things we'll talk about, but that was the core thing. You know, as Rumi said once, your heart knows the way, run in that direction. A lot of us give up very easily, very fast. Listen to your heart. Get used to learning about what your body is telling you. This is so fundamental. And part of the challenge is that in the world that I grew up and the world we are today, there is a big difference in there. In the world I grew up, you had neighbors, you had parents, you had teachers, you had people you talked to in person, face to face. You had a problem. If your family couldn't talk to you, you went to a neighbor, you went to a teacher. And it wasn't a formal invitation. You just knocked at somebody's door and you talked about the issue. And so there was this village that helped you. In today's world, that has been replaced with smartphones and YouTubes and short clips. Nothing wrong with that, but I think that personal touch has gone away. And what has been replaced now is that the social media has created this aura in the world that everybody out there is famous, perfect, and I have to be that versus I have to be me. And that's the bottom line that I wanted to share in this book is through some simple examples. You have to learn to know who you are first and fall in love with, not without, not as if you're perfect, but fall in love with who you are before you start to go out and do bigger and better things for other people, which is a must. As a leader, you must do that, but you got to start to lead with yourself.
That's great. And I think part of knowing who you are and accepting your experiences it is dealing with them, right? And you talk about it's a village. So let's go back to your village, because that philosophy that you have has come from all the different experiences you've had from a little kid up until an adult, right? And even
Yes.
now. And we can go back as far as you want, but I remember reading about one of your first experiences. I think it was with your dad on a motor scooter or
Yes.
something. It was one. It's about not giving up, right? So let's talk about that one.
Yeah. So I think I was in seventh grade, and my dad had this two-wheeler scooter. I think the brand was Lamberta or something like that. And, obviously, if you have seen, or any one of your audience have seen pictures in India, people will be riding a scooter. There will be a kid in front of the person who is riding, standing. There will be a wife or somebody in the back. There will be like 3, 4 people on that little two-wheeler scooter. So that's how I grew up. And, obviously as a kid, I wanted to ride it. Every time I would watch my dad, how he changed the gear. So having ridden the bicycle, I thought, oh, how difficult can this be? So I kept on asking my dad for probably over a year or so, can I take a ride? Can I take a ride? And Dad said, no, you're too young. It's not for you. But there was one Sunday that Dad relented and said, okay, go take a round. And that day, we used to live in this neighborhood where there was a playground in the middle, a ring road around it, and then homes all around the playground. So I started riding well. 3/4 of the way, there was this slope and a curve. Obviously, I didn't know how to control. I went too fast. Bang, I fell. The scooter fell on top of me. There's this big, loud bang. Entire neighborhood comes out running, and everybody knew everybody. And I was shaking. My dad comes out with his hand folded like this, and he tells everybody, do not touch him. And he instructs me to say, get up and take another round now. Now, I didn't want to do it. I was scared at the moment, but I did. And the second round was perfect. I made it. And I could see how proud my dad was, the way he stood, the way he spoke. And he never talked about falling down. He simply said, great, we'll do it again. And, obviously as a kid, I wasn't reflecting too much at that moment. But when I look back at that moment and I look back at a lot of the decisions I've made in my life, I think that was what I call the inflection point, one of the inflection points in life, that it took, so to speak, the word, fear from my vocabulary. Not that you don't feel fear now, but it took that vocabulary out of me in a way that now nothing really bothers me to the point where I shut down.
Mhm.
I don't freeze. I've gone through a lot. So that moment in time was so pivotal that I look at connect the dots looking back. A lot of my decisions, I related back to that event. That changed my wiring in my brain, and I've been acting in a very different way since then. So that was the event, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think I saw that. I think that's what made him stand out to me is the way you talked about it. Is that it established within you something that helped you address all the other stories. And there's so many people. I mean, we're gonna touch just on a few here, but if somebody really wants to get into it, there are so many stories. It's just like, oh my gosh, well, wow, then this happened. Oh my gosh, well, this happened. So you need to read the book. Let's go forward a few more years. And let's talk a little bit about your vision. I think it was your 12th grade that you lost vision in one of your eyes for a while.
Yes. So, as I write in the book, I was a cricket fanatic and I was pretty good at what I did. But at the moment, the culture in India was typically the way we were all raised was if you don't study, you're going to waste your life. And if you play, you're going to waste your life completely. So there was this mindset in a lot of people, and everybody wanted to be, and I think that was the ground reality of a country with growing population. And I think very early into independence, 26 years after independence, it's a lot of people had a romantic idea of do whatever you want. But then there's this ground reality in many places in the world, including here, that you have to put food on the table. And that dictated the culture of the moment as I analyze it and look back at it. That you got to study well, you got to be a doctor, engineer, something, because those were the best job. In those days, art and music didn't really, only there were five people who were known, and they're the one who made the money and all the songs. So that was the cultural background, so to speak. And so by 10th grade, I had gone to a state cricket selection and I was selected, but everybody in the family said, no, 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 forget about that. You got to go to college or study. Then I wanted to go to a sports college. And that also was like, no, 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 no. We are not doing that. So I was pretty angry at some level that nobody understands what I want to do. And then we got transferred from this town called Sindri in the east of India to the capital, New Delhi. And that's when I thought, wow, here is my opportunity to now really make it big. And so I did everything in my power to actually start playing in the same playground where some of the India's great cricket players would practice. And I met many of them, played with them. And one of my clubmates actually played for India for several years. So there was this whole, I was in the right spot. I was among the people. I was playing in this premier playground where lots of history has been there. But out of the blue, one day in late 11th grade or 12th grade, I just came home and my right eye was completely blind. Like I couldn't see anything, dark. So I went to this, one of the best eye hospitals in India. And the doctor, I was young, I didn't understand. He just said, we'll have to patch your eye. And I didn't understand that 100%. I thought, okay, they're going to patch both my eyes and that's it. I'm never going to see again. So I come back home, I'm pretty depressed. I tell my parents. Then my dad went with me. And that's when the guy explained that this goes back to 2 days before I was born. Mom had this horrific accident where several people got really injured. Mom had this iron rod go through her head and the blood came out just like a water faucet. And there was a possibility that I won't survive. So when I did come out, I was in intensive care for a long time. And the doctor had mentioned something that there's some injury in the eye. But nobody really took it seriously after that, looks like. Nobody. And throughout my middle school and high school, I would say many times I would do this while playing in the playground. And I could see, didn't see as well from this side. This was 2020. But nobody took me seriously. There were other people who got glasses. So the doctor goes, oh, they got some glasses. You want one too. And so I guess all of that led to the point where something happened. And the doctor explained that it's called the dull nerve syndrome or something like that, where one eye is too good, the other is not good. So this eye overtakes, the other one just goes dead. So that was it. They passed my left eye, which was 2020, to force this eye to work. And as part of the regime, for a year, every single day, I had this amazingly healthy, beet, carrot, green smoothie every single day, walking barefoot on the grass and exercise. And it took 2 years from that day. When it got better, even today, I cannot read from this eye, but I can tell if I close my eyes, okay, there is Cliff, not 100%, but because I'm talking to you, I know. So that was the journey. And I lost the eyesight. I didn't know what else because cricket was my life. Then there was 12th grade, which is so critical in the life of a student in India. It's a board exam you take. It doesn't matter your school didn't cover the syllabus. You have to prepare. And people do it for almost 2 years before you get in. So my sister helped me a lot to study while I couldn't see very well. And, we had amazing, I went to a very cheap government school. 10 cents a month was the tuition fee. But my best teacher was the chemistry teacher. This man, I don't know when he slept. We had 72 kids in the class. And he would show up at your house at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, knock at the door. Do you need any help? And he did for every kid, and nobody was paying him extra. It was all on his time and money. And because of him, 70 out of 72 of us got honors in chemistry, whereas we had physics and biology teachers who weren't, so to speak, as inspiring. And so physics, we had like 5 people get honors. And while we are waiting for the results is when this whole life changed for me. Me and my sister were waiting for our results. We had a lot of guests in our house that day. And one of our brother-in-law who worked for the Russian Soviet embassy in those days, he was sitting there. He was a nice guy. But that day something happened. He told us about this program where 300 to 400 Indian kids would go to Russia to study all kinds of stuff, medicine, engineering, whatever. And it was all expense paid. I had never heard of that program. I never had any intention of leaving India. My sister wanted to be a doctor, so she was more curious than I was. I didn't really care much for it. But then when he was talking about it and my sister said something, I think he said, well, without my help, you guys can't do anything or you can go anywhere. But the tone in which he said was so condescending that nobody said anything. Nobody replied back to him. There was like a moment of silence and then it passed. But it struck a wrong chord with me. It just went under my skin. And from the next day, I got up early. Everybody was early riser in my family. 4 o'clock, I'm up. I got ready. Early morning, first bus. I'm off to the neighborhood where there's all the embassies and consulates from around the world. And I didn't know any better. Young, 16, 17, 18 years age. I started knocking at every embassy and consulate. I didn't care which country it was. All I asked was, hey, how can I go to your country? What can I do? What can I study? I don't remember all the questions I asked. I just started knocking. And in those days, security was not that hard. So as a young kid, they'll just let you in. Okay, yeah, come on in, go talk to this person, go that. Now you can't do that. So I did that. And as a result of that, eventually somebody, I think at the U.S. Embassy, told me to go meet this lady at the U.S. Education Foundation, which was a different office in different part of town. So I went over there and she lived in this amazing Victorian style house. She invited me in and we sat in a swing for 3 hours and she talked to me about many different things. But the bottom line was, hey, does your family have money to send you abroad? I said, no. She said, okay, so my best advice is you do well in your undergraduate in India and then apply for graduate schools and hopefully you're going to get a teaching or research assistantship and that would be your ticket. I took that advice, put it in my heart, never told anybody, went home, and since then I worked hard. I've stayed focused, and 4 years, literally a month after I graduated, I was in Wisconsin.
Well, it's funny that it sounds like, and it appears in the book, in your story, that individual moments can make a difference and change the direction of our lives, right? Because you talked about the issue with your dad and then losing your eyesight and just the one sentence from that individual Russian person. How do you apply that to your challenges in later life, right? Or how can someone take those things? So everybody has those moments, right? Everybody has those moments, good or bad. It's either going to propel you forward like you did, or it's going to restrict you. So if you're going to give advice to somebody about those individual moments, how do you tell them to use them to the positive or to the benefit, and not to the derogatory?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think, as I said in the beginning, you have to be connected to yourself. The challenge is that a lot of us are, we don't spend enough time, quiet time, to hear ourselves. What is it that we want? What is it we don't want? What is non-negotiable in my life? And how do we reflect back on things that we do in our life? Most of us are so on the go, 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 go all the time because that's the culture we live in. And you are looked down upon if you don't take the time to say, I'm not interested in this go, go, go right now. I need some quiet time. And I think one of the best example I got was many years ago, I was in a Tony Robbins event, and there was a gentleman who met Michael Milken. You remember the gentleman who was known for junk bond many years.
Mhm.
So this gentleman who was telling the story, he was pitching an investment idea to Michael Milken's company in New York. And Michael was not there at the time. He went in a room, and the guy who had invited him said, do not look at him if he comes in the room. And there was this other people, so he's presenting, and Michael comes in halfway through the presentation. He sits down, so he doesn't look at him. He continues his presentation. And then somebody else comes in and interrupts Michael and tells Michael, Michael, we have this certain decision has to be made about some merger acquisition. Michael opens his book, looks through his schedule, and says, let them know that I will let you know the decision Sunday at 6 a.m. because 4 to 6 is my thinking time. Now, that is so profound that most of us never take 5 minutes of our time to say, let me just think through what I did today. Forget the lifetime. So I think this is a thing that nobody taught me this, but I saw my dad the way he worked, and I just innately, since I was a kid, I think I was always a little different in that I did my things. I didn't care what the world was thinking about me. I just did my thing to stay connected, and I've always been that connected to what I do, what I don't do, and I think about things I do most of the time. And so the way this inflection point works in my mind is you don't wait for some large thing. Most people have this idea that inflection points are some absolutely crazy big thing that happens in your life, and that's how your life changes. But my experience tells me that it's generally this minute, small things that may go unnoticed most of the time. And that's what cumulatively changes your life, one by one. And so if you can take that as a experience, as a fuel to propel you to the next thing. But as I write in the book, part of the challenge most of us have at times is we freeze with our decision because we worry too much about the outcome. Forget the outcome. Go after a decision, make that decision, and let the chips fall where they may fall. Just own it. Because every time you do that, slowly, slowly, you will see that you become a better decision maker. Your outcomes will improve, even if it doesn't improve. What it does, it builds your confidence in itself. As I said, it all starts with within. You got to develop that, what I call in the book, the element of faith in self, not in blind faith in religion, something or someone, in you. And not, I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm really talking about developing that critical sense of faith in self so that come what may, you have this amazing faith in you that, like today, if I lose every single thing I've done in my life as of this moment, it's going to be an inconvenience, no doubt about it. But can I build my life again? I don't have any doubt in my mind. Put me anywhere in the world and I'll make it. That's what I'm talking about. So that is how these inflection points can be used to boost your morale, to boost your faith in whatever it is you're doing.
You'd mentioned something out there that it was about making decisions with not worrying about the outcome, and then also Wisconsin. So let's talk about that a little bit because it's an interesting story. So this is you're coming to America, right? There's a lot of things in there which include food, the wrong clothes, Land's End, which Hardee's, Pizza Hut, and even your first movie in Dubuque. I worked for a company that was out of Dubuque, so it's interesting. So, give us a quick synopsis of how you got over here, how you froze, how you didn't eat, and then where you landed.
Yeah. So I think it's important for people to see this, how we, as we are growing from the childhood to now, how you have to really own everything. So as I write in the book, getting a visa in India to come to the United States, for whatever reason, whether you're coming for studies or otherwise, and in all the time I went, there was no internet and things like that. So you didn't do all the scheduling like we do today. Everything is organized and you have the schedule on time. So long story short, when I went to get my visa, that was another moment of knowing whether you stand for yourself or not. And when the visa officer asked me, hey, Ravi, you are 22 and we give you a visa and you never come back to India. And, a lot of people I've talked to had been before, they gave me all this coaching, say this, say that. I said, hell with all of that. I'm going to stick with who I am. And so I just took a moment to think briefly. And I said what came to my mind. I looked at him right in his eyes and said, when you were 22, did you know what you were going to do? He said, no. I said, isn't that an unfair question to ask them? And he smiled and he said, yes. And then that was it. He said, okay, show me your papers. Stamp, 3:00, come get your visa. And that day, if I remember correctly, out of 40 students, I was the only one who got the visa.
Mm.
So that itself, of course, when I look back, I see, okay, that was a stamp of approval in how I operated myself. Right. So I land in the United States very shortly after that. And, I land in New York, from New York to Chicago. Chicago, I stayed there for a night and then took the Greyhound bus to go to Platteville, Wisconsin. And I land there midnight of December 31st, 1988. Exactly at midnight. I get out of the bus. It's minus 20, 30 degree chill. I have never felt something like that in my lifetime. I wasn't dressed for it. I'm freezing to death. My professor, Dr. Harold Bales, was there to pick me up. And he asked, so where are you going to stay? I'm like, well, such and such graduate student has been communicating with me and I'm supposed to room with him. He said, well, I have news for you. The gentleman left. He's in Louisiana now, Louisiana State University. He's not coming back. So here I am on the other side of the world and no place to stay in the middle of the night. And then he had this great idea. He took me to this guy named Paras Reddy. He was a immigrant from Fiji Islands who went to school in Wisconsin, married a local lady, and he had a house. So knocked at his door past midnight. This guy comes in. He's a tall, well-built man, red eyes, big mustache. He walks in, deep voice, and he listened to Dr. Wells, and then he didn't show any emotion. Basically, he just said, there's a room upstairs on the side. Go up there. You can be there for a week. You don't like it, you can get out. That was the conversation. And so,
welcome.
Yes. So welcome. And then I go there. Dr. Bales helped me out. I just sat there. And that was the toughest night, I think, because there is this dinky little window in that room. And outside, all I see is snow. Nothing but snow. And there was a full moon, so you could see the snow. And I see a cat walking on the snow. And I'm sitting on the chair. I'm hungry as hell. I had some snacks that I brought from India my mom had given. Other than that, there was no food. So I'm sitting there thinking, I think I made a mistake. And I am crying. The tears are just falling left and right. And the whole night I was up. I didn't really sleep. Time difference plus the whole emotion was heavy. And the morning, Paris came, knocked at the door, said, "Come have breakfast." So I go there, and I'm not used to that breakfast. Orange juice and things were there, and I don't eat animal products. So I just took few things, waffle and I think orange juice a little bit, just to be polite. And then he said, "Get ready, somebody will come pick you up." So, and then this lady came, a short lady, and I came to find out that she was Dr. Meena Maskey. She was a pediatrician in town. She's been there for many years, married to a surgeon, and everybody in town knew her. The whole county knew them. They were very kind people. They kind of really helped me settle in that town very well. And then my roommate and I, we rented a place which was owned by Paris. Paris owned many rental properties in town. Very hardworking guy. So he and I would only do grocery shopping twice a month. And we'd ration our food to stretch the food however it was. But obviously it wasn't enough at times. So the only option was to drink water. And so I would drink just water and keep myself full. Um, and it went on for the whole 2 years I was there. There was really not much money because all this notion I had assistantship. It was like $1,800 for a whole, semester. Sitting in India, I multiplied it by 10. I'm like, oh, that's enough money and blah, blah, blah. Coming to US, I found out that was absolutely not enough money. And I was working in the library, making $2.36 an hour. Um, it was really hard. I mean, even now I choke thinking about it. It was really hard how I lived. Um, and I think one of the toughest moments was the December of 89 when all my roommates went for Christmas home. And it was freezing, minus 30, minus 40 degree, and lived in this 200-year-old house. Every time you walk, you can hear the walking everywhere. And they had this, not the central heating, right? There was individual heating. So I had this dinky little bed on the floor, mattress, and I had no money, absolutely $0. And I would be in a fetal position, covering myself 100%. And I would lay there for hours. And I think I found a couple of pennies. And then I went to a local grocery store somehow. And I talked to the manager, and he gave me some apple and a loaf of bread that they would have thrown. And I stayed with that the whole Christmas.
Mm. You know, for someone who is going through something, both either physically, I mean, personally now, or or professionally, that was such a hard experience for you. I mean, even years later now, you're emotional, but there was another side to that. You came out the other side, right? So, what is your advice for people that like say maybe personally, professionally, both, that you would say to them? Um, there's going to be another side to this. In
Yes, I think the only thing I can say is, as Jim Rohn once said, discipline is the bridge to success. And perseverance is the bridge. I would add to that, perseverance is the bridge to success, and not giving up is the bridge to success, whatever success means to you. But I think if I had given up after that and said, okay, this is too hard, let's not just do it, let's go back and stay in the warm place and just let it go, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have, more than being where you are, to me, the most valuable part is journey. I now know more about me than anybody else knows about me. And it's not an arrogant statement. What I'm trying to really convey to people is I've worked with people from 80 different countries. Probably I've interacted with 28, 30,000 people in my career so far. Fairly close. What is surprising to me is how little people know about themselves. They are projecting something that they are not. And this is where I think, to me, the real success is when you become comfortable in your skin, you understand what are your drivers, you understand your weaknesses, you understand your strength, and you're okay with all of that. And you're not worried about what the world says about you. And that also is very intimidating to a lot of people. This is something I want to tell you very clearly. I've seen it firsthand. I've lost jobs over it. I've lost interview offers from it. If you come out as a person who seems to be okay in their skin, a lot of people are very intimidated by that. And it is something one has to be very aware of, that this can lead to great things in your life, but it can also lead to you losing opportunities in life. Because some people feel that, because they misunderstand people like that, to say, oh, what if this person takes over my role or my XYZ? And that's really the furthest from the truth. From my understanding, all the people that I know, they know themselves. Um, they are not thinking in those terms. They're simply living their life the way they are. So that's what I would say. Don't give up that easily. We are all going to go through some sort of curveballs. Have discipline, have the patience, and believe. Everything you do, every single thing you do is building that next brick in the house of the kingdom you are building for yourself. And if you don't give up, it'll continue to be okay. And every effort you do, you're literally just making that structure stronger and stronger.
You know, that's a good foundation to have, because the next thing I want to talk about, and we're jumping forward a little bit, but is it's a situation where you're advocating for, it's your bike accident, right? Your bicycle accident. And then the professor, which then results into the ice rink and the job. So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about, being strong, advocating for yourself. And I think a lot of that, of what we spoke about in the past, came out when you could have stood up for yourself, right, on a situation. So let's tell everybody about your bike accident, where that happened, what the situation was.
Yeah, so I was at University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho. And one morning I was on my way to school and I had bought a $10 secondhand bicycle just to go from my apartment to the college. And that morning, like hundreds of kids were walking to school and I was on my bike. And this gentleman who was in this beautiful Mercedes Benz, he just cuts me off without giving signal. He just comes right in front of me. And everybody saw it. And I tried to avoid him. But eventually we just crashed on his front door. And it just made a big hole in his car. And I jumped out of it and then got up. Everybody came to help. He came out. He just gave his card. He said, I said, look, I have an exam. I got to run. But he said, okay, here's my card. I didn't even look at the card. I just put the card in my pocket. He said, I'll get back to you later. And I ran for my exam. After the exam, I talked to my advisor. I said, this is what happened. He said, Ravi, sometimes you have internal injuries that you may not know from outside. So it's better to get it checked. That's when I pulled out the card. And I look at the card, and the guy is a PhD in criminal justice and is a professor at the university. So I call him in good faith. He said, call me if you need anything. I call him and I said, look, I'm calling to take you up on your offer. I think after having talked to my advisor, he says that I should get a checkup done. His tone changed in a heartbeat. He said, so Mr. Prakash, do you think I did something wrong? Why don't we meet at the local police station? So that is how we ended up at the police station. We go to the police station and this room is just like what you see in movies, interrogation room. Think a little room with a light on top of your head. There's a cop sitting in front of us. I'm sitting in front of him. and the professor was right next to me. And the cop and the professor knew each other because professor grew up in Moscow, Idaho. The cop was from Moscow, Idaho. They had known each other. And the cop, the very first question was, Mr. Prakash, do you know what you have done? I mean, every attempt was to intimidate me as a student. So I said, as far as I know, I haven't done anything wrong. And I may be an international student, but I'm not a fool. Show me a law in the United States, anywhere, where it says the pedestrians and the car has a priority over pedestrian or a cyclist. I will apologize. And then the guy kept on asking questions. And then, as you read in the book, he started to ask me some really outlandish questions. Are you Muslim? Are you Palestinian? How do you manage your money? Do you have insurance? I said, that has nothing to do with what is happening. And I clearly told him, saying, look, I don't have any blood on my body, so you're acting like this. But if I had a blood, you'll be kissing me right now. And I also said, don't be so arrogant. You realize, and he asked me, where are you from? And I said, you are a professor at the university, and you've been here for a long time, and we have hundreds of international students who come here. If you were not so blind, you would know where I am from because you would have taken interest in your fellow students. But you don't. You live in a palace and you look down on people. And so I basically talked about the fact that eventually I just got up and left. I said, look, I'm not going to waste my time here with you. I don't remember how I got the information about his insurance company. I went to the insurance guy and he was shaking. He's like, well, what can I do for you? I'm like, look, you don't have to do anything for me. He said, can I replace your bike? I said, I'm not even asking for the $10 bike. All I want is to get a checkup done. That's all. I'm not going to sue you. I'm not that kind of guy. But then when I went back, my faculty and all said, no, you need to go talk to a lawyer. So we had a very good law school on campus. So I went to the law school. The professor at the law school said, Ravi, you are a student, he's a faculty, so we cannot take the case. There's a conflict of interest. And then at the same time, some people advised me I was about to defend my thesis fairly soon. They're like, look, Ravi, he's a long timer here. And in the thesis committee, not everybody is from my department. People from other graduate departments. And they said, you never know who is going to ding you and you will not get your degree. So you have to decide what you want to do. But in the meantime, I wrote an article in the local newspaper, which is in the book. Didn't name him, but I described the situation. And that led to thousands of people writing to me and calling me saying this was wrong, blah, blah, blah. And that led the vice chancellor and the graduate committee to ask both of us to appear in front of them. And that's when some of the faculty members said, Ravi, do you want to pursue this? And, I was in a very precarious situation because here I am. That was my third year in the US. I don't have a job. I don't have money. And I got to get my degree. So I also thought about my whole idea was to let him know I'm not your doormat. I'm not interested in suing people. I'm not interested in destroying his life. I just want him to know he needs to respect people. And that's what I did. I did not pursue the case beyond that. I pursued what I had to pursue, my degree in education, and I let it go. But with the letter, the whole Moscow, Idaho, Washington State, Pullman, everybody knew about this guy. And that was how I thought I stood up. And I got a nice note from the International Students Office saying, we're very proud that you handled yourself well in this situation. And I think that's just one example. I'll tell you that, and I don't want to be political in my speak here, but I think it's important for people as leaders, we have to speak about tough subjects. Today, as you see in the country, there is a lot of conversation about immigrants being the problem for everything. which is what I saw back then in 89 or 1990 when this happened. I think it's easy for everybody to find a scapegoat for something when we don't work hard ourselves. And that's what I'll tell anybody, whether you're immigrant or not. People who don't work on themselves, they find an excuse in others. And this is what I tell you. You have to find your thing. Find your thing. What is it that drives you? What is it that makes you? Character at the end of the day is the only thing that builds the kingdom. A lot of people have money, but there's no character. And at the end of the day, we have seen how many people who have had lots of money, lots of fame, and they have gone down the path that has destroyed their life. The only link that's missing is, I'm not saying you have to be perfect again. Perfection is not what I'm after. But you got to have some core characters that helps you propel you in your life. And that was just one example where as a young person, I stood up for what I had to do.
Say that was amazing because the situation that you were in, where you didn't really have standing, you didn't have money, you didn't have anything. And some people would say, you didn't have much to lose, but you really had everything to lose because, I mean, if it went wrong, you'd be going back to India. I mean, it could go that method. So it's a good lesson, I think, for people to realize, because we've all had those people in our lives and our bosses and stuff that are just, I don't want to say bad people, but they don't care about other people, and they treat people like garbage or cattle or whatever. So let's move on a little bit, because you live in Metro Atlanta, and there's a couple of stories around how you got here. I think here and left and back, but because I think part of it is there's another lesson around that where you I don't say stood up, but you basically stood up for something that was right to CEOs and other people and division leaders that were going to just wipe out everybody, right? So tell us about how you got to Atlanta, and then your job down here, and then in moving around and coming back.
So this is 1997, and I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm in the MBA program at UNC Charlotte, and I had been in Charlotte for about 5 years, and I didn't really have a great time in Charlotte. It was a tough place for me. I went through a lot in Charlotte, and so I had one class left to complete my MBA, but I had no money literally at that time. I had a loan from Citibank. I had a couple of credit cards, and I had become really good at Rob Peter, PayPal type of thing, where I had this spreadsheet where I bought 100 here, I paid 20 here, 25 here. I never defaulted, but my whole finance was based on borrowing money. I would cash in check that would come in the mail with 18%, 20% interest, but that was the money in my hand, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I was running my life. And I was at a point where this is my third master's. What do I do next? Like, how many, times I'm going to go back to college to stay legal and find a job? That was my challenge at the time. And at the same time, around 96, 97, the IT boom started throughout the country, right? So I had heard about Oracle as a software that was becoming popular. And I had taken a database class as an audit class in an undergraduate class in principles of database. And the professor was so amazing that I fell in love with the concept of relational database. And then I took a systems design class. And so my love for that area was starting out. And when I heard of Oracle, it's a relational database and XYZ, I drove one day to Atlanta to meet somebody who was teaching a training center. And it was $700 for the class. Again, I don't have my own money. But I had to do something. Like, this is like the end of the road for me, pretty much. I am taking every risk I can take in my life to make it happen. So I put this $700 down on a credit card without thinking how, when, where, nothing. I need to do something to do something. And I had come to Atlanta for 2 days during the 1996 Olympics. And I loved the energy at that time in Atlanta. Everybody was at their best behavior. We had a wonderful time. So there was this amazing image of Atlanta in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was part of the driver that I said, okay, I've got one class to finish in MBA. I was a legal class. And if I do this, maybe something will happen. So although I had an apartment I was sharing apartment with some students in Charlotte, I talked to this Oracle training center and I told them my story and said, look, I don't have the money. I need to find a place to stay somewhere. I don't care what it is, just a place to lay down. All I need is a place to stay, take a shower, and I'll figure out the rest. Food was always my last thing. I knew I could drink water and survive. So I was always thinking about how do I make it happen? And it just so happened one of the lady who worked at the Oracle Center said, I'm going out for the summer and my place you can stay as long as you take care of the place and you pay the utilities. I was right a mile from the center. I was like, perfect. I jumped on that idea, moved in, and I continued to commute between Charlotte and Atlanta from time to time. Took the class, did well, and it's time to close the deal in apartment in Charlotte and find a new place in Atlanta. But now again, the question is how? I don't have a job. I have some money left on the credit card, but that was it. And I'm now racking up close to 100,000 in debt over the 9 years that I've been in the US. So I took out, but I did my research. I went to every apartment complex in the middle of town. And if you're in Atlanta, the Dunwoody area, I just went to every apartment complex I could think of. So I had a very good idea of what it will take to stay. So I put an ad in Creative Loafing magazine saying, I'm looking for 2 roommates. Very clear ad. This is all I can afford. This is what I'm looking for. And this will be a 6-month contract. Well, in those days, there was no cell phone per se. So it was the voicemail that people will leave. I barely got any request for being a roommate. There were people leaving messages to date. So I had to pull the ad out. But out of all that craziness, there was one message from Mary. Mary was moving to Atlanta from Louisiana to do her PhD in clinical psychology. She said, I'm interested in talking with you. So I called her back and said, look, no, then I went to Emory University, student housing. And I was looking at the ads to see if there are people looking for roommates. And there was a lady with her daughter. So I said, hey, are you guys looking for roommates? She said, yes. I said, do you mind staying with a male? She said, no. I said, look, here's the deal. I have somebody else coming tomorrow morning. If you come, I can show you all the areas I've already researched. And if you guys like, we can sign the deal. And they agreed. So they came to my house next morning. I made a wonderful breakfast. We had a good breakfast. And I took them around. And literally like the third or the fourth place we saw, it was a brand new apartment complex, 1,560 square foot, 3 rooms. Everybody agreed the price was right, new place, good location. We signed the deal and I was very upfront with them. This is all I have. 6 months, nothing happens. I'm not renewing the lease. And they were a student too, so they were also tight. We all agreed. We moved in. And the very first week, I go to do my laundry. And I meet this guy and we start talking. And Peter goes, so what do you do? I said, well, I just graduated. I'm interviewing for jobs. He said, can you give me a resume? I said, sure. So I gave him my resume. And within a week, I got a call from his company. And it was a telecommunications company, one exit from where I was staying. So I went there, interviewed a couple of times, and I got the job. So after 9 years, I got this first job with $45,000. But within the first week, I told the boss, no, I cannot be here because there was no energy in that place. So I was already ready to leave that job. Then a few weeks later, I'm doing my laundry again. And I meet this other gentleman. We start talking. He said, what do you do? I said, oh, I work in the telecommunication. Now I can say something. I'm in the telecommunications industry. He said, I work for a German company. We are a startup. We are number one in the world. Um, would you be interested in traveling? I said, to where? He said, Brazil. I said, of course, when? And so he asked for the resume. And a few months later, I got the job at that company. And it was across the street from the old company. Literally just same exit, just different sides of the road.
Yep.
I got that job, and that's the job that took me around the world, that changed my life. And long story short, towards the fifth year, that company was acquired twice, one by a German English company, and then that got acquired by a really big oil exploration engineering company out of US, multinational, 80, 90,000 employees. And it also coincided with 9/11. So it was almost around that time that lots of things were happening, and we were a really young group of people at the time. We had built this company from literally from grounds up. Everybody was single or just getting married. Everybody has this great energy, camaraderie. We are traveling the world. We are on top of the world. And then 9/11 hits, and suddenly lots of things started to change. And at the same time, I was supposed to go to Brazil for a project. So we did go a little bit later. And that's when we started to get a lot of conflicting message from our corporate leaders, HR leader, immediate managers, same question, 10 answers. And we were actually right before that, the top guys from the new company came and gave a pep talk to all of us in Miami, saying that, oh, nothing will change, everything will be great, blah, blah, blah. And we were all young and rebellious a little bit. And I raised my hand and I said, okay, so let's stop this, BS and tell us, when are you closing this office? He's like, oh, nothing is going to happen. Everything. I said, look, we are not kids. We know that you're going to close this office. Because first of all, it didn't make sense to any one of us. Why will an oil exploration company buy a telecommunications software company? At least we didn't understand at the time. So anyway, he tried to persuade us. And so when I was in Brazil, the head of North America and a bunch of other bigwigs came to visit several project sites. And he took us out for dinner and all, and he was giving us the pep talk. Everything is great. And we were not taking it at all. And in fact, one of my Belgian buddy who was a little drunk, we basically tapped the guy and said, you're lying. When are you closing the office? But he didn't respond to it. But that day was, by that time, like the entire project, we had hundreds of guys on the project. Everybody was stressed out. People had family here. They were traveling. They had family. People had sacrificed a lot to build the company. So I told my wife, look, I didn't like what I heard, and I'm not going to sit around. So I'm going to fly to Atlanta on my own dime. I'm going to go meet this guy who's the head of North America, and I'm going to confront him about something that I think is not fair. And so that's what, I didn't tell this to anybody, nobody, just my wife. And I told her that when I come back, I may not have a job. That's all certain. And so she said, fine. So I booked my ticket. I came to Atlanta. I straight up showed up in his, if you know Atlanta, the office was in Alpharetta. I showed up in his office. And his assistant knew me, but she tried to stop me. I said, no, today you're not going to stop me. And so I walked right into his office, and I had a big folder in my hand. That folder had all the emails for the past 6 or 8 months, which included conflicting response to people's questions by the leadership and the HR and the managers. So I walked in and I said, do you remember me? He goes, no. I said, last week, 2 days ago, you saw me in Brazil. And he pretended he didn't know me. I said, okay, fine. Then he said, okay, so what do you want? I said, I'm here for only one reason. I'm not asking for your sympathy. I'm asking for fairness. You bought a company. You have the right to do whatever you want to do. I'm not questioning that. But most of my colleagues in this company are on some sort of immigrant visa. They were hired in the US. Their green card application has been filed. Money has been paid. Everybody is at a stage where they just have to wait. What you are trying to do is stop the process. What I'm asking you to do is not to stop the process. Not a penny is going out of your pocket. The money has already been spent. Now these people just have to wait. So that's first. Second, you hired them in US, you have to fire them in US. If you fire them when they're away, they may not be able to come back. Some of them own homes, they have family here, they have other investments here. So you have to allow people to be able to process their life. And then he goes, so you know these people? I said, no, I know everybody. And to be honest, I literally knew people from US. We had office in US, Germany, and Malaysia. I literally knew 4,000 plus people. So he turns around from his printer, he takes out the sheet and he had a list of everybody's name from the Miami office and LATAM, which is what I was part of. He starts to ask me name, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Yes, I know this person. There's the name, there's the husband, there's the wife, there's the kid. I knew to that level. And after I answered a couple of those answers, he knew I was serious. So at that point, he said, okay, we'll take care of it. I said, no, 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 I want that in writing. Then he calls the head of global HR, one lady in Houston. She picked up the phone, she's on the speakerphone, and she's trying to play the same game. You'll take care of it. I said, no. Either you take care of it or I'm going to the US immigration office right from here. I was dead serious. I had nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose. So I said, look, here is my folder. I'm going to take it to US education form, US immigration. You have lied to us for the past 8 months. And this is the proof. And at that point, they really got serious. And then they gave it to me in writing that nobody's application will be stopped. And I got that. I got up ready to leave. Then he gets up and says, Ravi, let me pay for your trip. I said, no, I don't take charity from people who have no integrity. Many people have helped me in my life. I'm happy that they did, and I'm grateful for that. But not from somebody who did not. Now, the reason I wrote this was whether it is this event or similar event that happens in many, many companies. And a good leader would think a little bit and take care of this issue without having to create any of this drama. It's the most simplest of things to do as a leader. And yet, time and again, I see that I don't know what it is. It is individual ego or position, title. I don't know what it is. But time and again, I've found the leaders don't do the basics they don't think from the human perspective. They get blinded by this dollars and cents is the only thing. And I understand business runs to make profit. That I don't have problem with it. But this is a message I want to give to young leaders, people who want to be leaders is you can get where you want to go in life, but you don't have to sacrifice and treat people like dirt. You have to value people. You have to value people at every stage of your life. When you do that, you have a lifetime of goodwill.
Right.
So that is how I ended up, and that's how I continue to see, I've made some tough decisions. I have had to lay off a few people in few projects, but none of that was ever done without really having a heart-to-heart conversation with all of these people and giving them chance to correct certain things. I'll just give you one example because I think it's important for people to know this, because it's easy to Again, nobody's perfect, but I had a chance on one project where I had a bunch of young people, young guys on the team, smart guys, but when they came to the office a couple of times, they all had were smelling like they were drunk. So I pulled them aside when they happened to be staying in the same hotel that I was staying. It was an international project. And they would party the whole night and nobody could sleep in the hotel, including me. And so when I told the hotel staff to ask them to stop, they said, well, they're your friends. And so I was in an odd situation. But at work, I pulled them aside. I said, guys, you guys have a wonderful job and a future ahead of you. Client is paying us to do certain job. You cannot be coming to the office drunk. So I'm giving you just one more chance. Go back to the hotel now. Don't come back. From tomorrow when you come here, I never want to see you guys drunk. You want to get drunk in your own time, that's your business. Office hours, focused, deliver. You come here next time drunk, assume you don't have a job. And that's exactly what I did. They came back a few weeks later. I did not have to have much conversation. I just told them, your job is gone. And so this is why I want to give the example is that you can take tough decisions, but I didn't do it in isolation.
Let me ask you about people, because there's a lot of people who perform, right, and then based upon the performance, they're put into leadership positions over other people, not necessarily because they have leadership qualities, but because they just performed well, right? And so I see that sometimes that causes issues because they don't know how to lead other people. They know how to lead projects, or they know how to do the work themselves. But all of a sudden there becomes conflict because now they're in charge of something. What would you give to someone who would be put in that type of position so they can thrive and their team could thrive?
So it is a really tough management challenge sometimes because when you take an amazing programmer or a developer, somebody who's really good at what he or she does, and you make them a manager without really understanding. So this again goes back to you as a leader, knowing your people, paying attention to them beyond their work, paying attention to the traits they might have. So when we do that, where we promote a really good sales guy into the sales manager for all the sales guy, the guy is not interested in training anybody. The guy is good in his individual performance, but he doesn't want to deal with the people. Same thing with the developer. Now, neither you have a good developer nor you have a good manager. You kind of lost both skills by promoting. So what I would, again, there's no easy answer for it, but I think the number one thing in the company is you have to balance the demand and the need for human beings to grow and continue to grow and be excited about what they do on a regular basis. And sometimes it's tough in many companies where you can't just promote everybody because there's not enough place to promote everybody. But when you are going to promote as leader, it is your duty to figure out who would be a good person to create an environment that allows people to be creative, to be excited about what they do, to be helping each other, to create an environment of collaboration and education and growth at the same time. Because I think it's a very tough situation where people leave because if they don't get promotion, they don't get raised, they leave, right? It's a human nature. But I think there's no easy solution. The best thing one can do is, given the circumstances, first always go back, understand your people, talk to them. What are their aspirations? Part of our job as leader is to make the vision of that person a reality to the extent you can. That doesn't mean you give everything to everybody, but you make that a reality. And I'll give you one classic example. My boss, when I went to Latin America, he was the SVP of Latin America. This gentleman knew every single person in our division. And one time he came, he was taking a trip to all the projects. So he came to my project in Brazil. We had a round table of about 40 of us. And he asked me to take all the questions from the team because he couldn't answer all the questions there. And so I sent all those questions to him. And over a period of 3 months, he answered every single question for every single person. And what he did with that was he showed that he cares. He demonstrated without talking about it that he knows every time we would come back to Miami after 3, 4 months, he knew all of us, our wives, our kids. He would ask about everybody. That's the level of involvement he had with us. So we also went back, bent backwards to do our job, and we did really well as a team. I think that's what is missing in a lot of corporate world is the care. As the saying goes, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's what is missing.
Let's turn it around a little bit. That let's say someone who's younger or newer in their career, but they feel like they have some leadership potential or would like to take that next step to leadership. What do they need to do? Because I mean, you've talked about knowing yourself and the experience and advocating for yourself, but let's apply that to someone who's like, yeah, I feel I could, I feel like I have some qualities and I want to lead. What would be your advice to them?
Well, so first, I think I would say is look and see if there are a couple of things that you wanted to do and you raised your, like, learn to say yes to a lot of things. Okay, that's first thing is to start to think about, okay, these are 10 things I want to do. But instead of worrying about it, say yes, put a date, and get going with it. Because what that will do is it'll test your own hypothesis that you have leadership skills. Don't let other people test your hypothesis. Test your own hypothesis first to see, do you really have the leadership skills? So that leadership is, hey, I'm going to read 10 books this year. List it, read them, and then you know that you got capable of doing that stuff. I'm going to save $10,000 this year. I'm going to donate $10,000. Write it, mark it, schedule it, show to yourself. That's the first thing. Then at work, I think you have to, and this comes with time, but get to know people at work in different parts of your company. And take 15 to, this is one thing I've always done is I will ping people and say, hey, I don't know you. I've seen you in a meeting, blah, blah, blah. Can I have 20 minutes of your time? And now it's so much easier with Slack and everything. You just huddle with somebody for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many people I've come to know that has opened doors for me to say, hey, Ravi, that was a great idea. We had a great conversation. I'm thinking about this. Would you be interested in doing XYZ? You start to become visible to people that they didn't know you existed. Again, you're not promoting yourself like I'm the greatest thing on the planet. You are simply saying, I am curious. I am taking some initiative. I'm beginning to meet people. It's the same way I'll tell you that I have made some amazing contacts in my career and life. I'll be watching a documentary. I watched, and one example is Fork Over Knives. It's one of those classic documentary. I watched it many, many years ago, and I saw Dr. Campbell, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. Greger, all these pioneers in the field of lifestyle medicine. I figured out who they were. I read their books. I've read probably 100 books on nutrition. I started going to international conferences. And today, I know all of these people. I met all of them in person. And I have not become a doctor. I've not become a researcher. But as part of my initiative, I know these people. I talk to them. I have communicated with them. That's what I would say you have to do to start to put yourself out there. I say that in book many times. You have to put yourself out there. Besides doing laundry, you put yourself out there, and leadership will happen.
I think that's really what it comes down to, right? Because over and over, there's examples of you in your book. What you did was you put yourself out there. You put yourself out there. no matter what the circumstances are. You're not worrying about what it is, the results are going to be, but you put yourself out there. And then
Yeah,
from that, sometimes things worked out maybe better than you thought, or sometimes they worked out not the way you hoped, but they
exactly.
worked out because you're still here, right? And it's in journey. So, you know, we talked about lots and lots of things. I just want to tell everybody, if you've liked any of his stories, there's about 50 more of those in the book. And you know, I mean, there's just so many, and a lot of them will be, it would be, it's like almost like that whack-a-mole game, right? Where somebody whacks you down, but then you just pop up somewhere else,
Somewhere
and then it
else.
keeps, and you just keep going, and you keep going. What are your any parting thoughts?
I think the key parting thoughts I would, and I, as part of this, I was thinking about a lot of things as to what I want people to know. And I think number one, challenge your belief. It's the number one thing that keeps us from moving forward in life. As they say, if you believe I can versus somebody who says I can't, you're going to have a different life. You're going to have a different trajectory in your life. So that's the number one thing. Question your belief. There is a thing called the science of success, which is we all have unlimited potential, but we don't always take action. So if you take an action, you get a result. That result may not be what you want, but you get a result because you took an action. But that action changes your belief. And if you continue this loop, potential, action, results, belief, you are slowly increasing your circle of comfort, and you grow. And then it's up to you how far you want to go. So that's my number one thing I want people to remember when you read the book. It's not so much about Ravi is special. I'm not special like everybody else. I'm just like everybody else. But you will see through the thread that that's one thing I am, and I will continue to have the belief that I can become what I believe I want to do in life. Second is connect the dots in your life. Wherever you are is where you are supposed to be. So don't try to pontificate too much. Oh, I should have, could have, would have. No, you are where you are. Be factual. Facts are facts. You are where you are. You're rich, you're poor, you're broke, you're not broke, whatever. You are where you are. Accept it. The number one thing is to see yourself as somebody else versus who you are. Accept who you are. Hey, your color, your hair, doesn't matter. If you accept your brand, you is the most important brand, nothing else. So once you connect the dots, you understand how your past decision led to something in your life. Let that be the school that teaches you what to do next. Okay, that is your foundation. You're building the clarity and the awareness to say, I did this 10 times and it didn't work. So now I need to pivot a little bit. And that's what you do. All of this will lead to the third thing which is you have this in life, which is the element of faith in self. When we do all this stuff, remember you're not alone. None of us are where we are in life. Doesn't matter how famous somebody is, how rich. Warren Buffett is not there because he's Warren Buffett only. Yes, a lot of credit goes to him, but also is because he lived in Nebraska. He had all these people around him. He went to library. He had teachers. He had friends. He has Charlie Munger around him. So there were a lot of things that helped in his life. So is the case with all of us. So I want us to understand that develop through your experience this element of faith to know where you came from, where you're going, and you can handle come what may. And the last thing I would say is your intention, your character matters. If you have good intentions, now intentions doesn't always result into good results for you. But because you didn't have the results you wanted, you become a person of bad intention. No, you won't harm anybody more than yourself.
Mm.
you're not going to harm other people. Yes, some people may get hurt and this and that with your behavior, but the number one person you're hurting is you. And the whole reason I wrote this book is to make you the person such that you're going to fail, you're going to suffer, you're going to feel pain. But at the end of the day, you have that solid character. You know who you are, you understand your pluses and minuses, and you believe that life is an experiment. Nothing is permanent in life, including your life. You're going to die one day. So you have this finite time to really play this game, the experiment game, and live to the best of your possibilities you can. And live, our life is meant for others. Yes, we need to do something for us, but really the joy of life comes when you see, hey, I helped that friend do something. I helped my daughter do something. I helped my, XYZ stranger to do something. And look back, how many strangers have helped you? Be aware that a lot of people have played a role in who you become. And so never forget the idea of the village. As they say in Africa, I am because you are.
Can't end on a better way for that. I just encourage everybody, thank you for being here. And I encourage everybody to go pick up your book. It's available on Amazon and soon, well, it's available anywhere you can buy books, Barnes and Noble, any place. So, read the book, get some lessons, leave a review. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll enjoy it from a perspective of just life lessons and business lessons. You'll take something away. So whether you enjoy nonfiction or fiction, it's or a good story, it's a book to read. So thanks again for being here.
Absolutely. And just one last thing. If somebody wants to reach out to me, they can reach out to me at Ravi Prakash at yoursuffer.com. So the word suffer as in the book, Ravi Prakash at yoursuffer.com. And I'll be thinking about some new stuff coming up in terms of an audiobook sometime soon. And I'm also working on an aspiring leaders class for young folks, maybe professionals from 30 to 45 years of age. The book was written based on that persona to help individuals become the kind of leaders they want to be in their life by leading themselves. So this class would be addressing those kinds of things, and hopefully will help those who are interested to become better leaders in their own life. So thank you, Cliff, for taking the time to meet with me today.
All good things to come. All good things to come.
Yes.
All right, take care.
Thank you.